Hello everyone, my name is Frederica Lawrence. I'm a virtual content specialist for the Passport to Social Studies program, Grade 1. Welcome. Today I really wanted to take some time out to really stress on how important it is to assess our students after we've done the lesson. So today I'm going to show you a really quick way to use our Google Classroom to create a formative assessment to measure the amount of learning our students have done. So in the previous videos, I focused on Unit 3, Days 16 and 17, where I spoke about using the lesson objective to really drive home instruction, examining the nouns and the verbs, pulling those out for students, and using it as a frame of reference throughout our lesson to build content knowledge for our students. Because in this lesson objective, it says they have to examine and explain. What are they examining and explaining? Maps. So I'm going to use that very same vocabulary and create an assessment for my students, again, to measure how much they've learned and what they have learned. So I'm going to use a form in Google Classroom to help me create this assessment for my students. Right now I'm in my Google Classroom. So what I would like to do is click on the Classwork tab and then click Create. Once I click the Create button, it gives me a drop down, and there are several options. But what I would like to do is create an assignment. Once I click on that assignment, you see it generates a form for me in Google Classroom. Once I click on this particular form, it then opens up and gives me a blank document that I can create an assessment for my students. So once that opens up, I can label, I'll call this reading maps, okay? You may want to change it again. It's totally up to you because right now you're doing it and then you may want to go back and change it again. So once I have done so, I titled my form. I now want to upload an image. I am going to use the very same image that the children have been exposed to so I can build knowledge for my students and allow them to become successful because they have used that map prior. So once I click on this icon right here, it allows me to upload an image, which I'm doing right now. And as I said, I'm using that very same map that I use in that lesson, Unit 3, 16, 17. I am going to label this map of the city of New York. City of New York. Once I've done that, I have labeled that. I am now going to generate a question. And the questions are based again on that lesson objective and the overall lesson. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to, what are the four cardinal directions? The four cardinal directions, right? That's a question I want to begin asking my children because I want them to start thinking about what that means because they're going to need that information to be able to relate to the map. Once I've done so, I'm going to make it a there's several options here, whether short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, but I want this to be a short response. I'm going to click the required button. I now have created my first question. Now I'm going to go to my second question. I'm going to click here, the plus sign right here, and it's going to open up another menu for me so I can generate another question. As I said previously, the lesson objective is the meat of your lesson. So I really want to keep on referring back to that so I can pull those verbs for my students to be able to use throughout my assessment. So I'm going to pull the verb here, examine, right? And we've taught students what that means, right? To look closely. So I'm going to use that very same vocabulary again. I'm going to say examine the above map. Examine the above map and identify which borough, okay, which borough is to the north. Okay. Now, just think about how heavy this is because the students have been used to the vocabulary because we've been using it, examine, and now you're asking that very same question that was from the lesson objective. So that way you're allowing students to be successful, right? You're not giving them anything that they haven't been exposed to. You're giving them the vocabulary, right? So now I'm going to look at that second vocabulary word, explain, that verb in that lesson objective. And I want them to explain their finding. Because the lesson objective said they're going to examine maps and explain how they are used to find different kinds of information. So now I'm going to create another question again. This is going to be a short response, short answer, and I'm going to redo a require button. And I'm going to click the plus sign again to generate another question. Explain. Here's that vocabulary word. Explain how, explain which tool, right, was useful in helping you, right, to identify, in helping you to identify which borough was to the north. Right? Because students have been exposed to this, they should already be able to tell you that the compass rose was what was helpful to help them find out which one was to the north. Well, let's go back to the lesson objective again. The students are supposed to explain how they are used to find different kinds of information. And what are you asking the student to do? You're asking them to explain how that compass rose was useful to help them find which borough was to the north. It doesn't become any more complex as that, right? Creating an assessment for students, that way you as the teacher can measure what they learn. And this is right in Google Classroom. So as a virtual teacher myself, this has become really crucial for me, generating assessments that the students can respond to, and I in turn can see their responses. Once you've created your document, it will live in your drive. And then you can, when you open up that document, the students have finished the assessment, and you open that document up, you click on where it says responses, and you're able to see each child's work. That is the great thing about this particular, using this particular form in Google Classroom. I do hope you find that this tutorial was helpful in generating an assessment for your students based on the lessons that you've taught. I do want to thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you find this video extremely helpful moving forward. Thank you.